Hello and welcome to the Angry Sniper. Episode number, not sure. I think it's 42, 43, 42, something like that. Look in the description, you'll see it. This is a different kind of episode because I'm recording, at the moment I'm just talking. I have not got any visual Warzone at the moment in mind, but there will be some, so you will be watching something at the moment, you know. But I'm not going to be talking about that. I want to talk about their plans for, I believe it's patch 3.3. There's been a podcast, which Alex Modny, one of the PVP designers or whatever, and Eric Musco did. The podcast is badfeelingpodcast.com. I'll put a link in the description below, you know. And some player has made a post in the PvP forums, in the Star Wars PvP subforum. If you go there, you'll see it. It's got a couple of hundreds. There's 19 pages of posting. There's a lot of good stuff in here, you know, but it's going to be very, very good for Warzones, and it's in that respect, a lot of it is going to be. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great. But there's two particular points which I would like to talk about, and you know, just respond in my boring, dull old voice. I don't know how long I'll be talking for, so it could be one Warzone, I don't know, you know. But yeah, they are changing the way AoEs work in Warzones, and they've also said a bit about how they feel snipers are doing, because one of the people who went who went along to that podcast plays a sniper, it looks like, and he turned around and told Alex Modny and Eric that playing a sniper was survivability was painful, and that's something I think a lot of us know if you go into the solo queue arenas. And they responded in something which didn't really surprise me, in all honesty. They've heard. It looks like they've heard their community regarding. They feel the community feels that snipers are not doing that well at the moment, and they mentioned a whole slew of stuff about the leaderboards and so forth, that us players can't see all the data, and they take a grander scale and so forth. And a whole bunch of stuff. If you got the chance, it's an hour long, but listen to the podcast. It's a good podcast. So that was interesting. But I turned around and said, with the metrics that they've got, snipers are actually doing pretty well. So it sounds as if, unless we've got a statistician sniper amongst us, it's to put some facts and figures to them. It's going to be very difficult, I think, to actually prove to them, despite what we say or think, that snipers aren't actually doing that well. I mean, I'll quantify that by saying I think all specs, bearing in mind I don't play Virulence, it's been a long time, and I doubt I'll ever play that spec again, to be honest. Marksman, I haven't played it yet in 3.0, but I've played it a damn sight more than I have Virulence, you know. But I think all three specs can do pretty well in regular Warzones. If you happen to be in a pre-made situation, then it's even better, especially if your pre-made actually knows how to support you. Because if they can support you, then you're going to do much better than if you were solo. It's just the way things work, you know. Group ranked, from what I've read, because I don't do group ranked, I've never done group ranked, I haven't really got any interest in it either, but from what I've read, Marksman is the one to go, and someone made a good post that a sniper marksman the design of the marksman, the way that works is very good for group ranked. The failings in the sniper's defenses is made up for by the tank and the guard and the healing from your group mates. But in solo queue, you don't have that. That's why it's people turn around and say, "Oh, snipers are fine." It's not like snipers are fine. Marksman is in a pretty good. It probably has got defensive issues, but marksman does pretty well. Yes. Engineering and lethality on the other, virulence on the other hand, that's where the problems arise. So you can't turn around and say that snipers are in a good spot, because it's just not true if you try the other two, and it just gets me thinking, how on earth, what kind of metrics do they have? That's, I mean, I'd love to know what metrics they actually use, but on the other hand, I know people never learn exactly how they do their metrics, because as soon as they give out that information, people much more clever than me will be able to figure out a way to exploit that and get changes done when there's no need changes done and that sort of thing, So we're not going to have the precise information on why they think snipers are in a good spot, but I'd love to know whether their metrics extend. How far does it extend to the different specs? It's got to, they've got to. I'm just thinking off the top of my head when I'm recording this. It's just bizarre. It's like I've spoken to some good snipers. Granted, it's on my server, which is a PvE server, but they're still pretty good snipers. A couple I've spoken to, and they've both told me it's touch and go. It's entirely dependent on the people on the other team and in your team. It's now, if that's what two good snipers turn around and say, then those who are not anywhere near as good as them, and there's, let's be fair, you're going to have good people playing a class and not so good people playing a class, so I'm not dissing anybody in the slightest, don't think that I'm doing that. But for those people who aren't as good as those, and I would put myself in that category as well, by the way, it's the amount you win, how well you do compared to those people is going to go down. And if they turn around and say that it's touch and go on how well you do, it's just, it doesn't tie up. There's something not quite right here when the player base, the sniper player base, obviously I'm biased towards engineering, turn around and say, look, this is a problem. But their metrics are, I don't know, something's not quite right. It doesn't feel right. Metrics will only tell you so much. And they kind of said that in a way in the podcast. Advert for listen to the podcast in the link description, in the description below. It's very interesting. They turned around and said essentially metrics will only tell you so much. It doesn't turn around and tell you how good the rotation is. It doesn't necessarily tell you how fun it is or how frustrating it is. That's what they have to gather from various websites and interactions with the player base and so forth. That's the only way they can possibly get whether it's fun or not. But I don't know. It's the biggest problem. Forget about all the issues in 3.0, even in say 2.10 or pre 3.0. The main problem with the whole sniper class in solo queue arena is a lot of snipers don't know how to kite. It's I'm sorry, it's just fact. It's the hardest part of learning a sniper. Um, there's some decent snipers on my server, which I like. You know, is in regular war zones. I think, oh god, you know, is that person's going to dish out a ton of damage because they tend to group up and so forth. It's whatever, you know. I've got no problem with them, but it's a couple of them have turned around and said um, they do have issues with kiting, and if you have issues with kiting in sniper in solo queue arena, when we have little to no support from our teammates, then we're not going to do that well. You're not going to do that well. So it's like, how have they got a metric to show how long we last in a war zone? You know, what is the life expectancy of our class? And I would like to know not just what's the life expectancy, average life survival time, you know, in a solo queue arena, but break it down in terms of spec as well. Because let's not forget, it's engineering lost one hell of a lot of survivability skills with the redesign of EMP discharge. Marksman, on the other hand, didn't. They still have a buffed entrench, you know, and that's going to help where the other two specs don't, you know. So there's a whole bunch of stuff like that to consider as well. I've just got a problem when they turn around and say, it's not just snipers. They turn around and say, you know, sorcerers are on a good spot, or marauders are on a good spot. It's why can't they quantify that down to Carnage is doing absolutely awful, but Smash and Watchman are in a great spot. You know, that's the kind of information I think we need, not just turn around and say snipers are in a good spot. If all three specs are, in their view, on a good spot, and net metrics are turned around and saying people have said in the past that they aim for a 50-50 win-loss ratio, which I can understand. Why can't they turn around and say, for example, the marksman is, say, 50-50, so they're happy. The engineering is 50-50, they're happy. And virulence is 50-50, they're happy. So all three are in a good spot and so forth. That's decent information. If they turn around and say marksman and engineering are 50-50, but virulence is like win 20% and loss 80%. You know, it's again, that's. I just think they need to be a bit more specific. They don't have to give their trade secrets away, but it's bizarre. It's a great example in one respect where the player base and community thinks something else, but yes, the developers with all their metrics and stats and so forth are seeing something completely different. It's like, how do you talk to them? How do you try and not necessarily change their mind, but how do you make them see your point of view? I think that's very difficult. It's because they're not going to turn around and tell you each and every single detail of the metrics they see. But yet, on the other hand, unless we know how they're doing their metrics, how can we turn around and objectively not criticize that, but give them constructive criticism and like help them explain, well, your stats are telling you this, but in a war zone scenario, this, and this is happening, so that's why you're seeing the metrics. But on the other hand, do you get what I mean? It's oh Christ, 14 minutes 40 seconds. Time to move on.